Hey everyone, I'm Allison.
I'm Bryce, and we're Better Half Reviews.
And today we're talking about Magical Unicorn Quest. It's a game by Andrew Kuplik. The art is by Kip Noskese, and it's published by Flamepoint Games.
In Magical Unicorn Quest, you are building up your stable with different magical creatures, and the ultimate goal is to get a golden unicorn and a majestic unicorn in your stable. If you do so, you win the game.
Alright, so let's check it out. In order to set up your game of Magical Unicorn Quest, it depends on your player count. If you're playing 2 to 4 players, you'll put in 2 of each of these unicorns. If you're playing 5 to 6, you need 3 of each. So go ahead, put those in, and shuffle it up. We'll set it up for a 4-player game. There will be a player aid for this game, so it'll help remind you of your actions and some of the different cards. Everybody gets a hand of 6 cards. You'll place the Magical Forest deck in the very center of the table, and when you're playing cards, there are stables that will be here in between each player, and we'll talk about that in a moment.
Each player's turn consists of 5 steps. Step number 1 is to draw 1 card from the Mystical Forest and add it to your hand. However, if your hand has no cards in it, at the start of your turn, you would draw 2 cards from the Mystical Forest. On your second step, you can choose to play a Mystical Potion card, and you can tell what type of cards they are by this text right below the picture. You can only play 1 potion card on your turn, but you don't have to play any potion cards. If you don't play a potion card, you can't come back to this step at a later point in your turn. Step 3 is you can play 1 mystical being card from your hand and place them in one of your stables. Here, I might choose the dwarf and place it in the stable to my right. Alternatively, I could choose to put it in the stable to my left.
Stables are shared between players, so this dwarf would go in the stable belonging to the player next to me and to myself.
That mystical being will stay in that stable for the rest of the game unless there's a card that removes it or moves it to another stable. On this step, you don't have to play a mystical being card. If you do choose to skip this step, you can't come back to it at a later point on your turn. On the 4th step, you activate the abilities of any mystical beings in your stables. First, you would activate the stable to your right. Once all those are resolved, you would activate the stable to your left. When you activate the beings in a stable, you can choose which order to activate them in. So in the stable to the left, I could choose to play the ogre first or the dwarf first, whichever would benefit me in my turn. Step number 5 is ending your turn. Here, if you have more than 7 cards in your hand, you would discard down to 7.
And the first player to get both the Majestic and the Golden Unicorn in one of their stables on their turns is the winner. So let's talk real quick about the different types of cards. So the Mystical Potions give you different abilities right at the beginning of your turn. So this Poisonous Mushroom lets you discard any mystical being from any stable. Pixie Dust, add any card from the discard pile to your hand. Unicorn Food, move a mystical being from one player's stable to another player's stable, even your own. Rainbows and Glitter, name a card, and all players must give you all copies of that card from their hand and add those cards to your hand. You can't ask for unicorns.
There are various mystical beings in the deck. Some mystical beings, like the ogre and the werewolf, can have some bad effects, like making you discard cards, while the elf and the dwarf can help you out by putting more cards on the table into your stable, or by allowing you to draw more cards. You can stack multiple of the same mystical being on top of each other in your stable, and that modifies the effect of the being. Sometimes stacking multiple cards can turn a bad effect into a good effect. There is another type of card that we haven't talked about yet, and these are the mystical magic cards. These can be played at any time. So for example, the Halt will stop any card from being played and automatically discard it. And then the Unicorn Thief can stop an opponent from adding a unicorn to their stables and allows you to take that unicorn and add it to your stable.
This is a prototype deck, so these aren't all of the different cards that will be in the game. There will be more options in the final production copy. Okay, so that's how you play the game. Let's talk about how we feel about it. Bryce, what are some of the pros?
So this is another one of those great family weight games, but I really like the kind of twist on it where you have 2 stables that you're working off of.
Yes, I do like that aspect where it's not all just about what you're collecting. You have to be mindful of what you're putting down on each side because you are helping yourself, but depending on when you play things, you could help your neighbor. So that definitely ups the strategy compared to other games that may be similar. And I like that the artwork is just kind of like fun and silly, and it's inviting. Plus there's unicorns, so. And I like that, you know, this is a small box game, but it has like that little aspect of engine building where, I mean, you're obviously not building that big of an engine, but you know, the more that you collect of certain cards, you can have different abilities. And so there may be different strategies of collecting more cards than you need, just in case some of those cards get stolen from you.
Yeah, like our first game we were playing, Allison's like, why do you have like 4 dwarves or whatever? And I'm like, well, if you take one of them, I still am over 2, so I can still get the ability.
Yep.
But yeah, it just has a lot of fun, little interesting strategy elements to it. From having to consider 2 stables and how you're helping each neighbor, what they might be putting down, to, you know, trying to mitigate some harm that someone else might do to you. Mm-hmm. But even with all that strategy, it is a really easy game to get into. It's really easy to pick up and just to start playing.
Mm-hmm. So let's move over to the cons. So this says that it's a game for 2 to 6 players, and it plays okay at 2, but I feel like it shines much better with the higher player count, so 3 and up. So that way you have that interesting dynamic of the 2 different stables going on. Because when it's 2 players, you're just going against one other person. So you just have your one stable and they have theirs. So I definitely recommend it for more player count, more of a higher player count. But I mean, it still works and it's fun at 2 player, but I think it would definitely be better at 3 and up.
So the game did feel a little limited. Like there wasn't that many cards in the box or that many types of cards in the box. But that could just be because it's a review copy. Mm-hmm. And we didn't have every card that is shown in the rulebook. We only had a limited number of cards in the game.
Yeah, so for, like the prototype, we didn't have as many of the cards that are coming out, but I feel like with more of the cards that we have seen in the updated rulebook, and I'm sure there's probably going to be some that are revealed throughout the Kickstarter, that can up the replayability and make it feel, you know, a little bit more interesting because there's going to be more options. So yeah, our cons aren't really that huge. It's mainly the 2-player version where it's like, yeah, it's fine. But yeah, I definitely would rather play it at the higher player count.
And the fact that you are controlling 2 different stables will add to the replayability of that because everyone's going to have their own different play style. And so you're not going to sit next to someone that has the same play style every time.
I feel like this is a game where you could play several rounds in one sitting, but I would maybe change up where you're seating or where you're sitting so that it, you know, different strategies and mix it up in that way it doesn't feel too samey, because if I'm sitting next to you the whole time, I kind of get what you're going to do. But if we change up our seating order, that could be kind of cool.
Yeah, I can see that being a lot of fun.
All right, so those are our thoughts about Magical Unicorn Quest. This is coming to Kickstarter April 15th, so you should definitely go check it out. We'll put the link in the description down below where you can find it.
Also, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe. We put out a ton of different videos, reviews, other things, and we have an Instagram account. So check out the link in the description below.
All right, I'm Allison.
I'm Bryce, and we're Better Half Reviews.
Happy gaming.
Have fun. We're Better Half Reviews.
You smiled.
I'm always smiling.
I know, but sometimes it's a problem.
Take 25. And we're Better Half Reviews. I almost said Magical Unicorn Quest.
I'm a magical unicorn.
No, you're an amnesiac unicorn.
And you're an amnesiac unicorn spouse. Thanks, Tia. Deal with it.